On this episode of the Dubcast, part of the Roundball Australia podcast network, Melbourne Victory have a new goal scorer, Kennedy White, getting a hat-trick in just her second game in the league, while their cross-city rivals put on a McMasterclass as they beat the Central Coast Mariners 4-0. Elsewhere, it was high scoring over in the West in a game that maybe no one saw. I'm not too sure. We'll get into that. Brisbane Roar ran out 3-2 winners in order to stay on top of the A-League women table, while Bev Priestman got her start as a club coach off to a moderate start. It was the draw over in Wellington, and there was one scoreless game across the weekend over in Adelaide that has a talking point that is probably not what you're expecting out of this game. Or if you've been paying any attention over the last 12 months, maybe you are expecting the talking point out of this game. On this episode of the Dubcast, my name is Poletti and Burke. The dub just never disappoints, does it?
Well, depends on who you're a fan of. Some people may be incredibly disappointed, but I am not one of them. I am not one of them. Yeah, it's been another crazy week that some things you saw coming, other things you really didn't.
Well, we'll start with your big storyline, as one of the things that you might have seen coming after last week was Kennedy White, although maybe not in the fashion in which she started here against the Western Sydney Wanderers, a 4-1 win to the Melbourne Victory. Danica Matos opening the scoring in the 13th minute, after which it was all one-way traffic for the vast majority of the remainder of this game. Kennedy White in the 41st minute, then in first half stoppage time, before getting her hat-trick just on the other side of the halftime break in the 48th minute. The first one assisted by Courtney Newborn, so that's the second goalkeeper assist goal we've seen in the dub so far this season, if my math is not mistaken, before Zoe McMeekin finished it off in the 83rd minute to make it 4-1. I know a few people had questions, Burke, on Kennedy White coming into the season, but I think she's more than truly dissuaded some of those concerns.
Yeah, consider your questions, queries, and concerns answered and quelled. She's got it. She's absolutely got it. She's definitely one of, I still think Bente Janssen's the best international signing, but Kennedy White is one of the best international signings this season so far. The crazy thing about the goals is that all of them looked kind of identical.
Yeah.
Like it was the same run every time, which doesn't bode that well for Western Sydney Wanderers. Fool me once, fool me twice, fool me three times. Who are we putting shame on at this point? Somebody. But yeah, I felt bad for Western Sydney because they went ahead early. It was a gorgeous goal. It was a real team goal. And yeah, finished by Matos, but they just couldn't keep it together. They had some moments in the second half where it looked like they were actually getting pretty close to finding a second goal, but it just wasn't meant to be for them. They did have their South Korean signing Kim Soni playing as well for the first time. Was she subbed on? I can't remember.
Yeah, she started on the bench, yes.
There we go. She was subbed on. I thought she had a pretty good showing, especially for her first game. I think she could be, hopefully, a bright spot for them. But yeah, this really was the Kennedy White show. Zoe McMeekin gets her first goal as well. It was almost a fourth goal for Kennedy White, actually, because she headed it, but it hit the crossbar, came back to McMeekin. No one's ever, if I'm remembering what they said on the broadcast right, no one's ever scored 4 goals in an A-League women's game before. So
that seems surprising, given,
right?
as we touched on last week, some of the score lines we've seen in this competition.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think, Victory are looking pretty good from here. Obviously, they haven't won all of their games so far, but yeah, they're looking good.
I mean, 1 win, 1 draw to start the season for the Victory, and going down to Brisbane, particularly after what they showed on Friday night in Perth, there's probably no knock on the Melbourne Victory. On the Wanderers side of things, look, as you said, there were some positives here. Obviously, going ahead early, and I think we both said last week that we were very concerned that they wouldn't score, and I think we both tipped them not to score when we sort of did our look ahead, let alone open the scoring, which is what they did. It was a very good goal for Danica Matos, but as you said, the goals from Kennedy White, they sort of all looked the same. It was just very easy for for the team to get in behind the back line and just split the defense apart. And I mean, it's kind of like it's a sort of like a back three, back five kind of vibe that Abrahams is, deployed in this game. And maybe that wasn't the right option, but we said it last week as well that defensively they looked a touch suspect against the Perth Glory, and Melbourne Victory absolutely took advantage of that. I know we were sort of talking last week about, overreactions to round 1. Give it a few more weeks, round 4, round 5, but can we like do we need to wait that long to try to have a look at what's going on with the Wanderers defensively? Because that's now 7 goals they've shipped in their opening 2 games. Yeah. I know Brisbane have shipped 4. I know Central Coast Mariners have shipped 4, and we'll get onto that game a little bit later as well. But 7 goals in your first 2 games is not.
Yeah. It's not an ideal start. What I will say for Western Sydney Wanderers, even though, put all their issues aside for a second, they seem to be pulling really good crowds.
Yes.
The broadcast looks really good, and I think that's really exciting for them. And you know what? Even bad teams need to have fans. Yep. The Essendon Bombers still have fans. So does St Kilda. And they're, both tragically not successful teams. So, if they're allowed to be bad and supported, I think Western Sydney Wanderers can be bad and supported too. And I think it's really great that they are having such success with their crowds. And I hope it continues, even if they remain woeful. I hope it continues because, everyone, every team, every player in this league deserves support, regardless.
So the attendance for this game was 986 to just shy of 1,000. It was the same in round 1, which, given the weather,
was
I know
crazier.
they had a lot of it was very crazy weather. I know they had a lot of pre-sold tickets. Anyone who's been to Wanderers Football Park know that it's probably quite close to capacity, having 1,000 people there, trying to, being able to actually make sure that you can see the game itself from wherever you may be set up around the venue. So, look, I'd like to see these crowd numbers continue for the Wanderers. My only concern is, I shouldn't say my only concern. My 2 concerns with this are the fact that we know that Australian crowds tend to disappear when sides aren't winning, and depending on what time games are played, Wanderers Football Park isn't exactly the best venue to be at because you're sitting in the sun. If you're lucky enough to get a seat in the grandstand, it's like those primary school metal seatings. Oh. So it becomes a very uncomfortable experience very quickly, and so my concern is that maybe the sides sort of maybe things start to drop away a little bit from the crowd perspective if those 2 things happen. But if they can, it's still early days. If they can start to turn a couple of things around, get a couple of results going their way, maybe we can see the crowds continue to be, around the mark where we have to have the discussion, have the Wanderers outgrown Wanderers Football Park? And I'd love to have that discussion. I really would.
I have my fingers crossed.
Before we move on the Melbourne victory side of things, lost last week to Brisbane. They really showcased what they were doing here this week against the Wanderers, as we touched on. They're sitting third on the ladder, just behind Melbourne City. A few teams tied on 3 points by virtue of the fact that, you know, we're 2 games into the season and teams have 1 win, 1 loss. Is this starting to and I mean, even then they looked good against Brisbane last week, but we're sort of seeing why so many people had high hopes for this victory side this season, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely. Like, they didn't really put a foot wrong except for allowing that opening goal, but that goal was just really excellent. So there wasn't really much that could be done there. So yeah, Victory they're gonna continue being successful, I believe, unless someone wants to pull the rug out from underneath them. I know Brisbane's already done it, but they do have the repeat of the grand final game this weekend against Central Coast at home of the Matildas. So I wonder if Central Coast can do it again.
Well, there's only one way to find out, and that's where we're going to head next with my big storyline, and I dubbed it a McMasterclass off the top. Now, there's many different ways you could take that. You could take the Mick to mean MC, Melbourne City, or you could take it to mean the goal scorers Holly McNamara and Shelby McMahon absolutely dominated, or helped Melbourne City dominate the Central Coast Mariners 4-0 out at Casey Fields on Saturday afternoon in torrentious conditions. The weather in Melbourne on Saturday was nearing biblical levels of rain at points. Holly McNamara goal in the 32nd minute and then a 54th minute penalty, while Shelby McMahon goal in first half stoppage time and then the 71st minute, I should say. The Mariners were in it for probably the first 25-30 minutes. They had some very good chances, couldn't quite find a way past Melina Mires, but after that it was basically one-way traffic as Melbourne City took control of the game, really put a stranglehold on it. Clearly not happy with last week's draw to Sydney FC and wanting to make a statement before they head off to Vietnam, Burke.
Yeah, and make a statement they absolutely did. I, for one, am very glad I did not attend that game because that weather was diabolical, even just being indoors experiencing it. So I cannot imagine what it must have been like to run around for 90 minutes in that. I'm glad I didn't have to. I'm glad I didn't have to stand around for 90 minutes in that. It got to a point, though, where the pitch was just so unbelievably waterlogged that the ball would just hit the ground and stay there. Awful. But yeah, just classic City situation. Shelby McMahon seems to really like scoring in stoppage time. Don't know what that's about, but I'm not mad. I'm really not mad. Yeah, it was a great game for City. Pretty much exactly what you would expect of them. Central Coast, yeah, they did look pretty threatening in that first 25-30 minutes, as you said. But yeah, Melbourne City, what can you do?
I don't think there is a lot you can do. When Melbourne City decide they want to be on, they're on, and help whoever is on the other side of, you know, having to face Melbourne City. So they come off the back of the 2-2 draw, and now it's a 4-0 win for Melbourne City. So they're on 4 points, second on the ladder. They don't play for the next 2 weeks as they're off to Vietnam. So it's the bye this week, and then their round 4 game is scheduled for sometime in December, I want to say off the top of my head.
I think so.
So it's very much a, you know, all their focus is on the Asian Women's Champions League in their little hub in that particular group. Their first game is on Thursday night at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, 3 p.m. local time in Vietnam. the same time on Sunday, and then Wednesday night it's a late night kickoff, 11 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, 7 p.m. local time. I think we both expect City to get out of the group, don't we, Burke?
Yeah.
And then they'll get to come back to play in the league as well and try to continue their good start to the season. On the Central Coast Mariners side of things, we both sort of identified pre-season that maybe they weren't going to be as good as they were last season. I think my big concern was this side gelling together and, you know, sort of developing that cohesion, which is very hard to do over the course of a short pre-season, given the amount of changes that had come to the side. And then they come out a 3-0 win against Adelaide last week in Gosford, but they're on the end of a 4-0 drubbing here in Melbourne. I don't quite know what to read into it, given that they looked good for parts of this game. Is it weather? Is it just two different oppositions that they weren't ready? Like, I don't know what to make of the Mariners so far this season. I don't know if there is anything to make of it so far this season, given how vastly different the two performances have been.
Yeah, I think what we've actually learnt from this game, possibly, and because of results elsewhere, maybe it's not that Central Coast are really, really good. It's that Adelaide are actually quite bad.
I mean, that is one way to look at it, and I don't necessarily disagree. Like, Adelaide, and we'll get onto this in a little bit. Like, Adelaide did struggle against Sydney to break down their defense, despite having a lot of chances to do so. Yeah, I mean,
like that was the first thing that came to mind for me, at least, was that maybe the Mariners are good, but they're not fantastic, and maybe Adelaide are just not great this year. I hope that's not the case, because I think it's fun when Adelaide are good, and I hope the Mariners can, kind of bounce back from this one. Obviously, like I mentioned just before, they are going into a grand final repeat against Victory away from home, at home of the Matildas, so it'll be interesting. They'll be coming up against, like, Taylor Ray and stuff. Oh, no, she's still injured, isn't she?
Yes.
They won't be coming up against Taylor Ray. But yeah, it'll be interesting. These first few weeks of the league really are just kind of everyone trying to feel each other out and see where everyone kind of stands. So I think we have at least, like we were saying before, at least till round 4, round 5, before everyone's kind of like settled in. Obviously, there are a couple of teams like Brisbane, like City, that and Victory, I guess, that are quite settled already, but with everyone else, it's just kind of, we're just going to play through it.
I mean, look, I understand that there's, you know, and I know we don't really talk about men's football in this podcast, but I know similar issues sort of plague some of the A-League men teams, you know, when they start their season, but depending on where they finish on the previous season's ladder, they have Australia Cup, at least to try to get things going. The women don't really have that. Like, yeah, some players play NPL, some players don't. So maybe a longer preseason and full-time contracts might help, I guess, fix some of those issues. And
you're
stay
asking
tuned.
for a lot here.
I mean, stay tuned. There'll be some more to talk about around that later in the episode and later this week. But we'll tell you more about that a little bit later on. You brought them up, so I think we'll head to Adelaide. A 0-0 draw between Adelaide United and Sydney FC, and I did kind of tease it a little bit off the top as well. The talking point coming out of this game, the one that no one, or maybe everyone, would have expected. This is the first time these two sides have played a draw in the entire history of the A-League women competition. Moving on. No, I'm kidding. We're not going to move on. I tweeted this on Saturday afternoon when I saw Sydney FC's starting lineup. In the last 12 months, Sydney FC have now had 6 different goalkeepers start a game for the club, with Heather Hinds coming in for Tiana Robertson after her performance last week against Melbourne City. So I will run you through the list. Since the start of the 2024-25 A-League Women season, Brianna Edwards, 9 games, 8 starts, 10 goals against. Talia Franco, 6 games, 6 starts, 9 goals against. Beth Mason-Jones, 4 games, 4 starts, 7 goals against. Jasmine Black, 6 games, 5 starts, 3 goals against. That was last season. Tiana Robertson, 1 game, 1 start, 2 goals against. And now Heather Hinds, 1 game, 1 start, 0 goals against. I don't even know where to go with this anymore. I'm getting sick of talking about it, to be perfectly honest. Even accounting for injuries, I can't ever think of a situation where a club's goalkeeping department has had so much change week in, week out, to the point where you genuinely have no idea who's going to start each week. Like, it's just a shock every time you see the starting sheet when someone starts for 2 weeks in a row. It's said 6 goalkeepers in the last 12 months. I know that Jada Wyman is nearly impossible to replace, who played nearly every minute of every game that she was available to play for Sydney FC. But there's also going too far in the other direction, and this is going too far in the other direction where they can't settle on a goalkeeper. And look, I know that Ante Juric and the club sort of identified the goalkeeping as a major issue last year as to why they didn't make finals, but I mean, what? I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know if there really is much to get. It just seems like Juric doesn't have much faith in any goalkeeper he has signed since Jada Wyman. 6 keepers in 12 months is an unreal stat, because some clubs will go years. Sydney even have gone years with just basically 1 keeper. I've never seen something like this before, but Dub is the Chaos League for a reason. We're always trying to do fun, cool new things, aren't we? Yeah, it's just really bizarre. It's just really bizarre. I think really what needs to be done is he just kind of needs to point at one of them and say, "You're the keeper for now," until something disastrous happens. I think, unless Robertson maybe picked up a knock or something, or couldn't play for some reason, I think it's a bit rough to immediately kick her back to the bench. I mean, unless there was something preventing Hines from playing last week. I don't know. Yeah, none of it makes sense. And I fear we are never going to be able to make it make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I went back to the comments that Ante Juric made last week when I spoke to him after the game, and sort of like he said it was a decision that he made, and that was it. And I'm assuming it's the same thing here, and I think that's probably all we're going to get out of it. It was just a decision that he made, and I mean, for everything that we may or may not want to try and read into it, I don't know if we're ever going to get an answer, because Ante Juric doesn't necessarily I don't want to say he doesn't have his logic or his reasoning, because I know he has his logic and his reasoning to it, but it just, I don't know, maybe just the fact that it keeps baffling us in the media and the general public to an extent. I don't know, maybe it's just going to continue to be the case and we're just never going to get the answers that we actually want, which I guess kind of sucks in a way, but also, whether we like it or not, coach doesn't have to share his decisions with us and his logic and his reasoning.
Yeah, I was just going to say, he doesn't actually have to tell us. So I guess we'll never know.
Yep. Until we get the be all end all novel that comes out of Ante Juric's
someone write a book.
Biography.
Someone write a book now. I need it.
We'll head to the match that kicked off the round now, heading out to Perth. Brisbane Roar 3, Perth Glory 2. Grace Kalamo opened the scoring in the 21st minute before Roller Batawea equalised in the 25th. Bente Janssen with a quick fire brace to start the second half, and then Ella Lincoln with a consolation goal in stoppage time to make it 3-2. Before we get to the game itself, we talked about this last week. It's 4 p.m. on a non-public holiday Friday. The crowd looked bad on the broadcast. We were told by a friend of the pod, Matt Olson, who was there, that there were more people on the broadcast side of the ground, but I mean, that doesn't necessarily show up on TV. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the scheduling choice behind this game. But try to focus on the positives, the on pitch stuff here, which was Brisbane Roar continue to look good, Burke.
Yeah, Brisbane Roar are good. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? I did.
Who'd have thought staying healthy would work in the favour of a side?
Didn't see that one coming. I will say, very, very happy to see Kulamu on the score sheet. I think I said it last week that she had a really great game last week, and I was hoping she builds on it. Thank you so much. I'm investing stocks, girl. They're in. I may need to start betting. Not yet. May. Yeah. Kulamu, great stuff. Bente Janssen, said it earlier. I think she's good for best international signing of the season. I know it's not a real award, but it is to me. It's hers.
I mean, we can make that part of our end of season awards. In fact, I'll make a note right now.
Yeah.
Best international signing.
You don't even need to, because everybody knows. I've already said it. Like,
Kennedy White might have something to say about that.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. Right now, my eggs are in the Brisbane Roar Dutch basket. Yeah, Brisbane, another good game. I think the only thing they really need to do is kind of stop getting scored on, maybe. That could probably help them a little. Obviously, they're top of the table, so you can't really, complain. But if there is something that you want to, point the finger at and be like, we need to get better here, it's got to be conceding so many goals in such few games. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 6 goals for, 4 goals against, a +2 goal differential. Both 3-2 wins in that respect. But, I mean, look, all the luck seemed to be against Perth Glory in this one. Jensen's second goal barely snuck over the line. I'm certainly not going to disagree with the official who would have been right in line to see it sneak over the line. The camera angles we had certainly indicated that it looked like it had snuck over the line. Brisbane then immediately come back under pressure, and they were able to get a goal line clearance away, followed by a fortunate bounce off the post a little bit later. If Glory get a little bit of luck going their way, maybe, this result is like a 4-3 in favour of Perth Glory. Like Brisbane Roar were certainly, the good value for their money, but on another day, maybe Perth walk away with the chocolates in this one.
Yeah, definitely. Roller Batawea, incredible signing for Perth. She's made a huge difference for them. The only thing is I feel like she needs to be a bit more careful in her play, because I did feel like she was getting called a lot for various fouls on different players. I respect the commitment, I respect the effort and the desire to win, but we need to call our Jets, girl. That may or may not be a reference to the Newcastle Jets, who were famously bad at cooling their Jets last season. They seem to have come good now. There is still time. But, yeah, I think she's been really, really good. Her goals look incredible as well. So, can't complain there.
Yep. One last thing to talk about from this game. Brisbane Roar were doing quite a bit of time wasting. I did see a little bit about it on social media. I believe it was Ben Homer on the call. My apologies if it wasn't Ben Homer. Was talking about it quite a bit as well towards the end of it. And look, I just want to say, time wasting is a part of football. It has been, in time memoriam. It's always going to be a part of football. If you wouldn't complain when your team's doing it, don't complain when the opposition's doing it. It's just part of the game. It's part of the tactics. It's part of the sportsmanship of the game that we all know and love. And that's all I want to say on it. Burke, have you got anything else to add?
Look, sometimes buses need to be parked however they can be parked. It's not pretty. It's, lots of people who are like purists will be against it. That's their prerogative. But yeah, like you said, when their team is the one that's parking the bus, they're pretty silent. They're not sitting there being like, actually, I think my side should continue, giving the other team an opportunity to draw this game. Like, let's be serious. There are certain behaviors from players that I don't enjoy, which I've spoken about before. But this isn't one of them. This is just, like they do it even in sports like basketball when the shot clock or like just the clock in general runs, they just stop playing. Like they know the result. They just stop. Obviously we haven't gotten to that point here with football, but yeah.
We'll head across to the other side of the distance derby now. We'll head across the ditch to Wellington, who kicked off their season with a 1-1 draw against Canberra. Josie Olasino in the 18th minute. I don't quite know what this goal was, but it was a goal. And then Marissa Vandermeer levelled it in the 39th minute. It was her error that led to Canberra's goal. If I were to try to describe this for those who haven't seen it. So Olasino puts a cross in, and I'm saying it's a cross because I don't think it was intended to ever be a shot on target. Marissa Vandermeer takes a complete air swing at it, and that ball bounced and spun like it was day 3 on a Hyderabad test match pitch past Essen, who missed the ball because I don't think she ever expected the ball to get to her too. She was set up completely in the wrong spot for this as it crosses the goal line to make it 1-0 for Canberra. Certainly not the prettiest goal that's ever been scored in the history of football. But I don't think Canberra would have cared. But and then Marissa Vandermeer made up for her error, scoring the goal in the 39th minute off a set piece that Canberra kind of looked a little bit all at sea for. It didn't quite get a definitive angle on this one as to whether or not it crossed the line, but the referees made the decision. And I think based on the way the game played out, a draw was probably a fair result, regardless of the slightly contentious nature of the Wellington goal, Burke.
Yeah. The Canberra goal was just bizarre. I think part of Essen's problem, the goalkeeper, as well as not being in the right position and not expecting the ball, I think her view may have been blocked as well by Vandermeer standing in front of her, and they're just completely missing the ball. But hey, these professional football stars, sometimes they really are just like us. I could air swing at a ball like that every day of the week. Just a really rough error to cop. But I mean, there are silly errors that happen all the time. I think about Melbourne City conceding a goal when Rebecca Stock played a back pass and Bubs just didn't put her foot down far enough and the ball just rolled in under her foot. Like, sillier things have happened. Sillier things will continue to happen. I'm glad she managed to get back her goal, I guess. Yeah, and a draw was definitely fair. One thing I did really enjoy watching in this game was the Wellington's new signing from Nepal. She goes by Samba on the pitch, and I thought she was really exciting. She had a couple of shots on target, on goal, but keeper either got to them, or there was one point I think she had more time than I think she thought she had. and then didn't.
It was like the 12th minute of the game, and had she waited another few seconds, might have actually been able to score the opener.
Yeah, but I thought she was really, really exciting. I think she's going to be a real threat throughout the season for the Phoenix. Yeah, and obviously great to see Vandermeer back on the pitch, because she did her ACL last season after doing her ACL the season before that. So she's been through it. Did her ACL, comes back first game, concedes the goal, and then makes up for the goal. It's a real whirlwind for one person.
It is indeed. Looking at this game, I want to highlight a tweet from Joey Lynch, who on Saturday didn't get to watch this game live. He was, I believe, he was at Lakeside Stadium for Australian Championship duties.
Probably getting rained on.
Yep.
Actually, definitely getting rained on, I think.
In terms of the I believe he said something as well on that. Yeah, there we go. Sneak preview of the first cross. He was because he was the sideline for the broadcast. If you know Family Guy, he posted the Ollie the Weatherman. It's like, it's raining sideways. Like, that was. So yes, he was absolutely getting rained on. And then of course the Melbourne derby on the men's side meant that he was very much busy all day. He posted this on early Sunday afternoon. Watching yesterday's dub games, Samba Bandari, I am noticing. Yes, I am also noticing. And I think that sort of sums up. Yes. Talking on her good performance there. Look, Wellington definitely shaking off the off-season rust, plus having the extra week off. Bev talked about it a little bit after the game as well. Look, I'm not much like I said last week, much like I've sort of said a little bit, I'm not reading too much into the Wellington Phoenix based off this 90 minutes. It was their first game of the season. There are a few positives. You can see what they're trying to do with their structure. You can see what they're trying to do with their tactical formation as well. And are very much looking forward to seeing how it plays out throughout the season. I mean, I don't have a lot to say on Canberra either. I think it's early days. I think they're still trying to, figure out a few things as well. I think I need to wait a few more weeks before I make my mind up on Canberra.
Very fair. Very fair.
All right, so that is our A-League Women wrap-up for round 2. Just a little bit more news to talk about. The Young Matildas have had their group drawn for the Under-20 Women's Asian Cup. They will be participating in group stage action against Japan, Taiwan, and India. The Women's Asian Cup also serves as qualification for the Under-20s Women's World Cup. The top 4 teams will earn their place at the World Cup, so make the semi-finals and you make the World Cup. The Young Matildas qualified outright for the 2024 edition, while they participated in the 2022 World Cup edition after North Korea withdrew from the tournament. So they're looking to make it to their third tournament in a row. Burke, I mean, top 2. Yeah, I could see this being top 2. Maybe Japan will be a little bit of a struggle. I mean, this side definitely struggled against Japan in their semi-final match at the 2024 Women's Asian Cup, Under-20 Women's Asian Cup in Uzbekistan. But I mean, Taiwan, India should be able to get past them. Should be able to make the knockout stages. I can't see any reason why that wouldn't be the case.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, on the Japan thing, I don't really think there's a team on earth that doesn't struggle against a Japanese women's football side. They are famously incredibly good, and for a reason. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see these matchups take place. I think you're right in that Japan will probably be the toughest side for the... Are these the Young Matildas? These are the Young Matildas.
These are the Young Matildas, yes.
There are too many Matildas. We need to get rid of at least 3. I am not a crackpot. Yeah, and then going forward, there'll be, if they get out, there'll be some interesting. I'm always saying interesting, but it is interesting. What can you do? Yeah, should get some good games out of the other teams that are around, should they get through.
Yeah, so I'm very much looking forward to that. It will be a 12-team tournament, the Under-20 Women's Asian Cup, after the 8-team tournament in the 2024 edition. The other groups in action, so Group A will see Thailand, China, Vietnam, and Bangladesh. Thailand hosting the Women's Asian Cup, so they get the top seeding by default. While Group B will see North Korea, South Korea, Uzbekistan, and Jordan. It will be the top 2 teams from each group to go through to the knockout stages, plus the second best third place finishers. So I see absolutely no reason why, as we said, Australia shouldn't go through, and the Under-20 Women's Asian Cup will take place from the 1st to the 18th of April 2026. So a couple of weeks after the Senior Asian Cup tournament takes place here in Australia. Alex Apakis saying wants to draw. We know that every match at this level demands our full focus, so we will ensure our preparation is thorough and purposeful. Our focus remains on the team's preparation and development. We've built a squad with depth, resilience, and ambition, and this draw gives us a clear roadmap to test those qualities. Obviously, we won't know the actual squad till much closer to the tournament, and rightly so, but I mean, based on what we've seen of the young Matildas in the last couple of times they've been in action, I think there's a lot to be positive about here.
Yeah, definitely. We've always, for the last, 10 years, had excellent youth prospects, and we still do. So it's only getting better, I feel, considering there's been a real focus on the youth stages of our national setup. Yeah, it's going to be good. And regardless, it's going to be good experience for these players if they're wanting to, try and push for senior Matildas positions. They'll get more experience playing at a really high level with really high stakes. So, yeah, it's good all round.
Yep, so very much looking forward to that tournament in April. And the last thing, we're sort of won't touch on it too much because we're going to do a special record, which will drop into your feeds on Thursday. The PFA has released its annual A-League Women Season Review report on Wednesday morning. Having read the report, it's not necessarily good reading all the way through, but Burke and I we're gonna go through the report, and we're gonna have a proper discussion about it, and a little bit more than what we can fit into sort of into a larger podcast, because I think it definitely deserves its own airspace. So if you haven't read the report, as I said, came out this morning, Wednesday morning. So have a look at it if you can, and we'll be back on Thursday morning to break down that report as best as we can. Burke, we didn't have any questions this week, so I think that'll do it for this episode of the Dubcast, part of the Roundball Australia Podcast Network. Oh, actually, no, we need to do our look ahead to round 3. I always forget something.
You don't want to look ahead? You don't want to look ahead?
I mean, we don't have to, but no, I think we should. So Adelaide versus Canberra at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, 6:30 p.m. local time on Friday night. Do Adelaide bounce back? Do Canberra bounce back? Is this going to be another draw? Where do we see this one going?
I'm sick of Adelaide drawing, but I hope Canberra win. So.
I mean, these were two sides that finished bottom 2 a couple of years ago, and they played out a ridiculous 4-all draw. So, I mean, high-scoring draw I want to see a high-scoring draw. I think that's what I want to see. Sydney versus Perth, 2:45 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time at Leichhardt Oval. This game will be on free-to-air television. This is on 10 Drama. Does Sydney bounce back or do Perth bounce back?
Perth. And who knows, maybe Sydney will be debuting their 7th goalkeeper in 12 months.
Sophia Pante, come on down. The floor is yours. For me, look, Perth, this will be their second trip to Sydney in 3 weeks to kick off the season. I mean, I'm very high on this Perth side for a reason. I think I might have to give Perth a slight edge in this one. I'll head to the home of the Matildas next for Melbourne Victory versus the Central Coast Mariners, 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. This game also on free-to-air television on 10 Drama. Do the Mariners offset their loss to City with another result, or do Melbourne Victory continue their strong start to the season, Burke?
I think Victory are going to have this one. Yeah, I think it's going to be hopefully not so comfortable for Victory, because I want to see the Mariners kind of, take it to them. But I think Victory will come away with this one.
I'm going to say 2-1. That's all I'm going to say. Don't ask me which team wins. I'll head across the ditch. Wellington in action for their second game of the season against the Jets, who will also be in action for their second game of the season after having the bye in round 2. This game, 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, 4 p.m. local time in New Zealand. Burke, where do you sit on this one?
This one's interesting because the Jets only just snuck out that win in round 1 because of because of an error playing out from the back. Who would have thought?
Don't play out from the back.
Literally. And then Wellington managed to get a draw against Canberra. So it could go either way. I'm hoping we get to see Samba on the scoring sheet this time around, because like we said, she came very close a few times. So I don't know, maybe 2-1 in this game as well, but I don't know who's 2 and who's 1. They'll let us know. I'm going to say home ground advantage will work here. Wellington will get the chocolates at Poletti Park, because if you know anything about air travel, jets, and other plane devices, carriers, I know what I'm trying to say, struggle in windy conditions and experience turbulence, and we know Poletti Park tends to be quite windy. Finishing out round 3 was Brisbane Roar up against the Western Sydney Wanderers, 4 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, 3 p.m. local time up in Queensland. I don't think either of us see a result where Brisbane don't go 3 from 3. No, Western Sydney Wanderers, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You know that stupid sound that's been going viral on Instagram and stuff, or TikTok or whatever, and it's like, why am I coming to the event? Oh, in case something bad happens to me. Oh, I'm a human I'm the sacrifice. Yay. That's what Western Sydney Wanderers are. They are the sacrifice this season. I'm so sorry, Western Sydney Wanderers. But like I said, I still want you guys to experience success, even if it's not on the score sheet. Get those crowds, girls. Get those crowds.
As someone who is terminally online but does not scroll Instagram or TikTok, I had absolutely no idea what Burke was talking about or where she was going with it.
It'll make sense to someone.
It was my own adventure, right? But I mean, look, I think it's going to be Brisbane going 3 from 3, and Melbourne City, as we've already touched on, have the bye because they are in Vietnam for the Asian Women's Champions League games, the first of which is on Thursday night, 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. I haven't seen where these games are being broadcast yet. I'm assuming it'll be either 10 Play or Paramount Plus, but keep tuned to club socials. I'm sure Melbourne City socials will tell you where the games are being broadcast. But that will do for this episode of the Dubcast, part of the Roundball Australia Podcast Network. As I said, we'll be back on Thursday in your feeds to talk about the PFA's A-League Women's Season Review Report. But Burke, I said it off the top, Dub is always exciting and it never disappoints, and hopefully it'll be more of the same this week.
Fingers crossed.
For Burke, my name is Poletti. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you on Thursday, and then once again we'll talk to you next week to review round 3.